Ever since I was a young man learning to drive, I was always fascinated in cars older than my time. So when I started driving, I bought myself a Ford Anglia from 1957, and that was in the late 70s. And you can imagine in those days that was an old car, but I loved it. I liked everything about it, and it's always been like that. Later on in my career, when I went self-employed and set up my own business, and eventually was making some money, instead of buying a brand new Saab Turbo, I bought a 1968 Jaguar 420. And I just loved those cars. And later, right up into 2005, I was driving a classic Mercedes from 1975. But at a certain point, I said, right, enough is enough. I didn't want to constantly refuel the car twice a day, driving around doing my business. And I sold it and bought a brand new Audi A6. And the Audi A6 was quiet, it was comfortable, it was safe, it took me to where I needed to go quickly, safely, you know, as I say, with the air conditioning and all the luxuries you can imagine. But it was an extremely boring car. And this is exactly what I want to say about this amplifier. I'm sorry, Gary, and I'm sorry, Ross. These are the designers of this amplifier. But your amplifier is boring. And I'll tell you why it's boring. It's because it's perfect. When I listen to music with the Pureaudio 1, and now they've got the 100.3, it's just about listening to music. It's just like my Audi taking me safely to where I want to go in the absolute luxury. And when you look at Pureaudio's website, the opening bit is that that Gary and Ross design amplifiers so that people can enjoy music. That's their raison d'etre. And that's exactly what it's about. Now, it just so happens that throughout the last 15 years of researching ideal combinations between the Sibelius SG and the CG and even the P and amplifiers, there has been nothing, but nothing that sounded better than this. What is it? It's a beautiful piece. I mean, the engineering is incredible. You've got Gary Morrison's fantastic design. And when I mean design, we're talking about the architecture of the amplifier itself, the schematic, how everything works. It's just incredible. This ex-Plinius heritage, amazing. And then we've got Ross's incredible architecture with the building, I like to call it, around it. This is the Pompidou Centre in design, but everything is actually meant to be like this. It isn't about looks. These pieces that are cut out of this hugely thick aluminium casing are cut out and used as the heat sinks on this amplifier on both sides, because it's dual mono and it's Class A. So it generates quite a lot of heat. Because the Class A is an amplifier that amplifies the whole cycle in one go, in one set. There's no switching. It's using a lot of power, even when it's standing still, that it needs good ventilation. And what Ross has come up with is an amazing piece of architecture to allow Gary's electronic design to work, and to work not just for now, but for ad infinitum. Because these components are not stressed, they're not overloaded, and they will just work year in, year out, day in, day out. But the amazing thing about it for me is that it just gets the Sibelius drive units completely under control. The wonderful drive units made for us exclusively by Mark Audio. And Mark Fenlon and I spent a lot of time working together to get this just right for the Sibelius. And he suggested to me, Mark that is, that I should try out the Pureaudio, because he had heard about this. And this is made in New Zealand, and I live and work in Belgium and Europe. And I kind of ignored it for the beginning, but after a while I contacted Gary and Ross and said, listen, can you send me over one of your amplifiers? And, you know, I purchased this one, and yeah, it's just incredible. It's just does everything perfectly. It doesn't shout, it doesn't this, it doesn't that. It just works perfectly. Now, we use it all of the time in the direct mode, so you can have it on direct, so you just ignore the preamplifier. But it has actually got, I think, yes, 1, 2, 3, 4 inputs if you want to use the preamplifier, which makes sense, obviously. But we always just use the power side of it. And I have no more superlatives for it, because when I'm listening to music, I am not thinking about the amplifier at all. I'm not thinking about the speakers. I'm not thinking about the preamplifier or what DAC or streaming. I just fall into a trance where I'm just listening to the musicians who are creating the wonderful things, which is the reason for the whole of this passion, energy, and business. So I want to say, first of all, thank you to Gary and to Ross for this fantastic invention. And I know they've got, you know, a lot of other products. They've got the single monoblocks as well. And they have some vinyl preamplifiers to go with it. But basically, it just does exactly what it's supposed to do. And yes, it's nearly 3 times the price of a pair of our loudspeakers at around 10,000 euros. But for me, it's worth every euro. It's not in everyone's budget, I know, but I see it a bit like you buy this, you buy it once, and you never think about replacing it or changing it or upgrading it or whatever, because actually it just does its job. And although I've said my favorite amplifier of all is the single-ended triodes that we've got from Mingda via Mark Manwaring Wright, that's because they're sexy. They're like my old classic car. You know, they're not as good as the Pureaudio. If you're analytical, if you're critical, if you listen to them, they're not doing it 100% correctly like this one is. But they're fun and they're lovely, you know, and you wouldn't want to let them go. But the Pureaudio amplifier is what is needed if you really want to get the absolute best out of your Sibelius loudspeakers. And if you're prepared to pay a lot of money, because I think I see 10,000 euros for an amplifier is a lot of money. I know some people say that that's a budget amplifier, but for me it's a lot of money. If you're prepared to pay that money just for that moment. I ought to tell you a little bit about the amplifier, I suppose. It's 30 watts per channel in Class A mode. And if you need more, which with the Sibelius you never need, to be honest with you, it will jump up to, I think, 80 or 100 watts per channel. But just like Nelson Parr says with his designs, you know, it's the first watt that matters, and this does the first 30 absolutely amazingly. I'm sorry to keep coming on with superlatives, but I've got no other way of describing it. I like the look, I like the sound, and when it's plugged in, maybe it's because of its relatively plain fascia, you just forget about it and you just listen to music. And after all, that's what it's about. So I hope this has helped you and in making your final decisions. There are, of course, lots of other amplifier manufacturers, of which some are really amazing as well, but that's my passion and that would always be my first choice. Thank you for watching.